Has there ever been a better cardboard representation of an era than the psychedelic funk 1972 Topps baseball cards dropped on collectors way back when? I mean, here you had wild colors, starburst team names, arched borders, mutton chops, and handlebars, and Fu Manchus, and long hair, and afros, and chest hair like shag carpet. Even if you couldn't see it, you knew it was there. Add in superstars and rookies and Hall of Famers and a huge checklist and scarce high numbers, and you have a set that stoked collectors for decades. So which of these classic cards are the most valuable? Well, I'm glad you asked. What follows are the 10 most valuable 1972 Topps baseball cards as listed in the PSA Sports Market Report price guide for PSA 8 copies. Who was the greatest catcher of the 1970s? Yeah, Johnny Bench. Now, how about the greatest catcher of the 1980s? Can I get a Gary Carter? The 90s? Probably Ivan Rodriguez, right? But how about the greatest catcher who played in the biggest chunks of all 3 decades? Who would that be? Dude doesn't exist, does he? Au contraire. Carlton Fisk was smashing baseballs and running down runners for the Boston Red Sox when I was just a baby, and he was doing the same for the Chicago White Sox when I was finishing up college. Absolutely amazing, and little wonder that his rookie card sits here in the top spot at about $150 for a PSA 8 copy. Of course, sharing your rookie card with Mike Garman, not to mention Cecil Cooper, never hurt anyone's cardboard values either. Ryan and Fisk both retired after the 1993 season, but Ryan started his big league career a couple of seasons before Pudge did. And Ryan was dominant just about all the way along, save for some wild years with the New York Mets. A December 1971 trade to the California Angels ended all that, and Ryan was set on his way to legend status. By the time this semi-high series card was issued, Top knew it had to show the Ryan Express with his new team, so they airbrushed on the Halos garb. Not an artistic masterpiece, but not bad enough to keep Ryan from roughly equaling Fisk, value-wise either. Another $150 card in graded near mint condition. As the 1972 season dawned, so did a realization for fans who hadn't been following Hank Aaron closely for the previous 18 seasons. This was the man who would make a serious run at Babe Ruth's all-time home run record. After all, Mickey Mantle was 3 years in the rearview mirror, and Willie Mays was fading fast. But not Hammering Hank, who clubbed 47 homers in 1971 to sail into 1972 with 639 to his credit, less than 80 shy of the Bambino. This card shows Hank doing what Hank does best, holding a bat against a blue sky. It's a pose shot, but you get the feeling that Henry might still tie into one somehow. The 1972 Aaron sells for around north of $100 when you find it in PSA 8. This is Clemente's last regular Topps card issued before his death in the winter of 1972, and it's a straight-up beauty. In fact, this shot of a contemplative legend tossing a baseball against the backdrop of the Pittsburgh faithful, all swaddled in that 1972 powder blue and accentuated by the pirate starburst, usually scores high on best cards of all time lists. Expect to pay $100 for a PSA 8 copy. Love him or hate him, Pete Rose was pretty much the most exciting player in the game during the 1970s and much of the 1960s and 80s too. And there was a time when Rose's cards were just about the most valuable cardboard in every set they graced. It helps things a lot, value-wise, that this 1972 issue is sort of a high number and that it looks so darn good, especially if you're a fan of the Cincinnati Reds. For all his warts and all the bad blood surrounding Rose over the last 30 years, this is still a $90 or so card in PSA 8 condition. Bench, of course, remains a beloved figure in the game, even though he's had his curmudgeonly moments. See, Dude was the first member of the Big Red Machine, not named Pete Rose, to skyrocket to stardom, and this beauty was issued during Bench's Monster 1972 season, after which he won his second National League MVP award in 3 years. This one sits just behind the Rose card at about $80, but don't be surprised if you find them flip-flopped from time to time. So here you have the perfect storm, the greatest pure hitter of his generation on a scarce high number card that just happens to look spectacular too. Before the rookie card craze grabbed hold of the hobby in earnest in the mid-1980s, this was just the sort of card that sat at the top of the market. Everybody loved Carew and nobody could find his pasteboard. Voila, cardboard gold. Much of that glow remains, and this card usually sells for $70 or more in PSA 8 these days. What was the worst trade ever? Was it Lou Brock for Ernie Broglio? Jeff Bagwell for Larry Anderson? John Schmoltz for Doyle Alexander? They all had their distractors, but there were few deals with consequences far more reaching than the November 1971 pact, in which the Houston Astros sent Joe Morgan, Ed Ambrister, Jack Billingham, Cesar Geronimo, and Dennis Minke to the Cincinnati Reds in exchange for Tommy Helms, Lee May, and Jimmy Stewart. It was both the beginning of Morgan's march to the Hall of Fame and maybe the final stroke of construction on the aforementioned Big Red Machine that would win the World Series titles in 1975 and 1976. Of course, the swap came too late for Topps to get the players in their new uniforms for 1972, but they did manage to issue a second card for Little Joe late in the season. It showed him in his rightful red togs and featured a big rubber stamp "Traded" across the front. Today, this monumental card is a $60 plus item in PSA 8. The Say Hey Kid may have been nearing the end of the line in 1972, but fans still loved him. We still do today, especially the collector type of fan like you and me. And this Topps card is extra special for longtime Mays followers because it's the last base issue from TCG to feature Mays with the San Francisco Giants. Because by the time this baby was issued, Mays was back in New York with the Mets and starting to look feeble. But this shiny moment in cardboard brings in $60 or more in PSA 8. Ho hum, another early 1970s top set, another great card of Reggie Jackson. This one shows his powerful left-handed stance and focused eyes to great effect. Not to mention his A's green long sleeves, gray-white vest with gold piping, and A's hard hat shining in the sun. An awesome early 1970s tableau of a man who was in the midst of building his legend, and another $60 card in PSA 8. In 2019, baseball fans were shocked and saddened to learn that Tom Seaver had been stricken with dementia and that he would be retiring from all public appearances. The reality of Tom's terrific situation is all the harder to swallow when you see him as he appears on his 1972 Topps baseball card. Following through on a toss, peering at you with determination, wearing his shiny blue Mets warm-up jacket. All under a perfect blue sky that makes you think everything will always be okay and that every day will be spring. Everything won't always be okay, of course, but this card makes things okay enough in the here and now to bring $50 or more in PSA 8 condition. Like our video? Then like our video and subscribe to our channel, waxpackgods.com.